Welcome to Mighty Married Moms. Join us at our kitchen table twice a week as the Mighty Married Moms, Debbie, Linda, Wendy, invite spectacular guests to weigh in on staying sexy, vibrant, and healthy, building marriages with soul-satisfying connection, raising happy, healthy, successful kids. Conversations with Mighty Married Moms will bring you closer to the life you really want. Episode 16. Hi everyone, welcome back to Mighty Married Moms. Today I have the distinct pleasure and privilege of introducing you to Susan Epstein. Susan helps exhausted and overwhelmed moms whose lives have been taken over by their kids' out-of-control behaviors to calm their households and get much needed time for themselves and enjoy their family life. She founded Parenting Powers in 2007 after a 25-year career as a family therapist. Susan is the author of multiple parenting books and a national presenter on explosive, challenging, and resistant kids. Susan, that is quite a resume. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be with you all.
Great. So let's just start real quickly by telling us, how did you get from where you were to where you are today, especially the fact that you started out as a therapist and now you're working as a coach. Tell us what that transition is.
Well, I started in the olden times as a therapist before managed care, and that was great. Starting out, it was definitely rewarding and it paid well and all of that. But I'm always kind of that person that likes a lot of variety. I don't like to sit in a chair all day and see one person streaming in after another. So I did a lot of different things when I was a therapist, and I was probably already like pushing through to, I don't know, sort of rebelling in the system even then. I started a lot of groups. I did a lot of different things. I would make home visits to my clients and help them clean out their cabinets. And I don't know. I just
what kind of
like, yeah. But always wanting to kind of like change it up and do it different. And I never knew, I started to get a little bit burned out, I think, and bored with the whole therapy model. And I remember one day I was in my therapy office and I thought, something has to change. So I rearranged the furniture.
That was
literally, it was. And I'm like, maybe I just need to like a new perspective. I need to sit a different place in the room so I don't feel so heavy. But it was also, as a therapist, you're attracting people with mental health problems, a lot of depression, a lot of trauma, and you're holding that container for people. And if you're doing a little bit of it, it's probably fine. But I think, year after year, day after day of dealing with really sad, very, very depressing situations, most people don't do it for their whole lives. So unbeknownst to me, this thing was invented called life coaching. While I was struggling, I didn't know anything about it, and I was talking to a friend of mine actually who worked at a youth service bureau in Connecticut, and I was telling her how I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I want to do, and she said, why don't you talk to this friend of mine who, excuse me, who is an MSW, LCSW, and she just became this life coach thing. Right. And this was probably in 2001, 2002.
Okay.
And I went and called her up and I hired her as a life coach. And within about 3 to 6 months, I hit every milestone that I had said I wanted to. I planned a trip to Italy. I bought a new rug. I mean, it was just all these things that I had been procrastinating forever.
Okay.
And I said, I really like this. I'd like to have the chance to maybe do this. And she said, well, this is where I went to school. So I went to a life coaching school at the time and met a lot of really cool people. And then kind of started little by little putting myself out there as a coach. And it took about 3 years as I started to, through attrition, get rid of my practice and at the same time add in coaching people. And at first it was just sort of life coaching, whatever showed up.
Okay.
And then one day I thought, well, maybe I can marry this, like this parenting with the coaching. And I went online and like nobody was doing it. There was like maybe, there was one parent coach company that they made these parent coaching cards for you to buy for your kids to get them to clean up their rooms. It was something like that. And then there really maybe 1 or 2 other people in the world had actually thought of putting parenting with coaching.
Wow.
So,
really? You're a pioneer.
I was a pioneer.
And this was in the early 2000s, you say?
Yeah, kind of like 2003, 4,
Okay.
about, almost 10 years ago.
Okay.
And so then I hooked up with this guy in Oregon, and he had a big site with different coaches. He had like 15 different types of coaches on the site. And he said, you can be the parenting coach. And I'm like, that's nice. And he started feeding me referrals. So, but of course I was paying him overhead, for that. Obviously, you do that. And one day I thought, maybe I could just have my own website. Like, that would be interesting. Like, just kind of like, why am I working for someone else? Why don't I just do this myself? And that was in 2007 where I launched Parenting Powers and just went on my own, completely on my own.
Great.
Yeah.
Good for you. That's great. Can you describe for our listeners and viewers what exactly is the difference between the therapy model that you started out with and the coaching model that you use now?
Yeah. So my therapy practice pretty much looked like Monday through Friday. I would, get up and get dressed and have to put makeup on and all that. And people would, I had a home practice for many years. So people rang my doorbell, walked through my living room into my office, sat on the couch for 50 minutes. We talked, and then I would see them the following week.
Okay.
And then on Fridays, I would spend all day fighting with insurance companies to pay me. And it was not fun. Yeah. And billing and I also worked some evenings because I saw children. And occasionally I would do groups on Saturdays. So it was fee for service. So let's say this winter, if I had been a therapist, I would have lost money, I would have lost momentum, I would have lost everything because people would not have come to my house with the weather.
The snow, yeah.
So it's a fee for service.
You live in the Great Northeast?
Yes.
I live in Connecticut, yeah.
Oh, gosh, yeah, yes.
Yeah.
The 2015 winter will not be soon forgotten.
No, and I know therapists in the community, and they're like, this was the worst month of my career. I can't pay my mortgage because people cancel. You cannot bill out for a service that hasn't been rendered if you're a medical professional. So, and the model for coaching is one where you the clients pay you at the beginning of the month or for the beginning of the year if they're going to work with you that way, and it's based on the program that you offer. So I offer 3 sessions a month, and then they get a bunch of my books, and then they get access to live events or online events as bonuses and things like that, so that I'm actually giving them an experience rather than a session.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
So from the client's point of view, somebody who's working with you, what would be the difference between the therapy and the coaching?
Well, in therapy, I'm dealing with a diagnosis of something. Let's say it would be depression or post-traumatic stress disorder or something like that, maybe ADHD, and I would be working pretty hard to get that resolved in the medical model. So I might refer to doctors for medication if I thought that the parent wanted that, or if the parent was begging for that, which most parents are these days. So I would be, pushing towards that model. And also the way most of us are trained as therapists, we don't do anything in between the appointments. I mean, we might do some collateral stuff like with other professionals, but we're not supporting our clients in between. With coaching, I can have a session with you today, and I'll be like, you know what, get that implemented, and send me a text message tomorrow, and let's see if it went, and if it didn't, we'll get on the phone for 5 minutes and make sure that you can pull it off, because I'm really surrounding you with the experience of moving you forward. And with coaching, I see my clients as creative, resourceful, and whole.
Yes.
Rather than sick.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that's probably the biggest distinction. And most of us fit into that. I basically say, unless you're psychotic, you can have coaching. I mean, really. I mean, even if you're depressed, you can benefit from a life coach or a health coach or a wellness coach or a parenting coach or any other type of coach.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. That makes sense to me as a health coach too. That's sort of, the typical medical model is to go in and look at disease, and the wholeness model is we're all whole and well and vibrant. If there's something that we're not doing, that we can bring ourselves back to that.
Exactly.
Yeah. My heart's racing because I used to be a registered nurse in the clinical world myself.
Yes.
And if I could wind things back to high school, I would have gone in a more of an area where I could work with people on their creativity, their home.
Yes.
You know, going from good to great, coaching people along. All these things weren't around. We look around the same era. You know, all these things weren't necessarily around. And if you quote unquote help people, or if you felt like you were natural, like for me, I'm a natural cheerleader. Like, you can do this. I'm so psyched. I see I see great things in you. I know you can do it. Oh, no, I can't. Yeah, you can. Try this, try that. So that's a very natural part of who I am. So I really appreciate what you're saying and how you have framed that. And I couldn't agree more about when you mentioned about your own professional development around, I'm sitting there with clients and talking about things for 50 minutes, and then they get up and go, isn't there something else I can do in my day? Like looking for those creative outlets to kind of say, how else can I apply my craft and my wisdom and my hard-earned education? So I really appreciate that, and I can't imagine that the people you work with aren't thrilled to not be in this box of, oh, I have a kid with ADHD. I'm sequestering off for 50 minutes to show my shame and have somebody deal with me, rather than saying, this is my family. How can we get some traction and really run with it and have a really vibrant home life?
That is exactly the difference. Yes.
Yeah. And I just wanted to ask you. So I think from a health and wellness, as far as physical health, the former model, or the model we've been following in Western civilization, is you go to the doctor only when you're sick, only when you have a diagnosis or you think you need one, or whatever the case may be. And so the wellness model is sort of prevention, and let's find out how to stay vibrant. So when do parents come to you for coaching? Like, do they wait until they've got serious problems, or do you find now there's a shift happening that they're saying, hey, maybe we could get some coaching so that we don't get super stressed out with our kids?
That's a great question, and it really depends on the parents. What I've noticed over the years is that men who are in corporate, I'll say men, get offered coaching a lot. It's in their, it's just in their language. Sometimes big businesses hire. So over the years, I've had a lot of men, husbands, reach out to me and say, we're doing this at work, but I would love this for my family because I want a mission statement, and I want this, and I want that. And that's been really interesting. So some come that way because it's more of a like, I want to give my family what I know is available, what we're capable of and what we can move towards, and I want to plan. And I've had a number of people over the years hire me for that. And again, it's mostly men. And then there is a group of people who, oh my God, we're hanging off a cliff. My son was just arrested. I need your help. So there is crisis. But once the crisis is over, they stick around, and we work backwards and figure out what happened, and then let's look to pull it all together and create peace and harmony in your home going forward. So people don't stay in crisis forever. They resolve it, and then they continue to work. And I'll usually work with people for 6 months to a year who have that type of an issue. And then there's people who, I just ran a group coaching program called the Mom Magic, and nobody that was in crisis joined it. It was really just people going, wow, I could use some help in like being less chaotic. I could use some help in putting in some systems for my kids. Yes, my kids are back talking, but it's not like so serious that they have a diagnosis. It's just that, like, I know as a parent that I'm probably getting caught in the energy, and I don't know how to put a stop to it. So I think it's pretty much all people can use coaching. We know that because we're coaches.
Yep, talking to the choir here.
But as people self-identify depending on what you have to offer and when you have to offer it.
Right.
Yeah. And then also referrals. I mean, I worked with a mom in Chicago. I wouldn't say it was a crisis, but it was a situation where it was like she was trying to work, and the husband was working outside of the house, and he was never home, and they were very driven, and their kids were in all these programs, and just their kids were on medicine, and they were on medicine, and everybody was just trying to function. And she reached out to me through a colleague. And by the time, 4 months later, nobody was taking medicine. The family situation was completely ironed out. Mom and Dad had gone away for a weekend to renew themselves.
Yeah.
The kids were happily doing their homework most of the time. The back talk was gone. The baby wasn't clinging. I mean, there was just a lot of stuff that got better because she didn't know how, and she just needed the tools, and she needed some systems, and she needed someone to hear her and listen to what her situation was. And because it worked so well, she told all her friends.
Yeah.
So, the phone rang, so this small neighborhood got healthier. That happens.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the keys, as a parent coach too, and family coach, people just they don't have the tools or the skills to know how to raise kids. I mean, we're not taught that. We're taught math, we're taught English, we're taught how to be a good citizen, but we're not taught how to be a good parent. Ever, really. After the Lamaze class or the childbirth education class where you learn how to push it out, then you don't know what to do with it.
That's right. That's right.
Assistance, and they make you take parenting classes.
Yeah.
It's like, but the average person
doesn't know.
It's not required to take, but we're required to take driving lessons, big vehicles. You need to, there's all these analogies that we can go on and on and on.
Yeah.
You go down into marriage and everything. But there's no awareness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Are there a couple of key strategies that you would share with our audience members here? Some, 1 or 2 tips that you could share to have
Absolutely.
them?
So one of the things that I do right off the bat is ask parents, what's the energy like at home, and how is everyone speaking to each other? And most of the time, what I hear is there's a lot of back talk, there's a lot of power struggles, there's a no, I won't, and you can't make me. There's, I won't brush my teeth, you can't make me. I'm not going to do my homework. I'm not going to go to school. Get off my back. As they get older, it gets a little more loud and a little more inappropriate. Right. So the first thing that we talk about is getting back the respect. And I kind of, say, take back your power, your parenting power. And we work on something that I call the robot. And the robot is basically, and here's how I figured out about the robot. I watch Cesar Millan, the dog whisperer, and because I have a dog, and we watched all his tapes and stuff, and I started thinking, well, this is just like kids, And I thought about like we have a Cocker Spaniel, and if I come home after food shopping or something and go to the door and I'm like, hi, Harpo, hi, how are you doing? The dog is jumping on me because he's responding to my energy. If I walk in the door really quietly and I say, hey, puppy, hi, my puppy, he goes on his back and shows me his belly. So I said, there's something here. So so if we were to respond to our kids by non-engagement when they start to get inappropriate or nasty, whatever, frisky in a negative way, because frisky in a good way is you can wrestle with your kids and jump up and down and tickle them, and that's cool. Yeah. But when they're yelling at you and calling you names and hitting you and kicking you and spitting at you and those types of behaviors with young children and with older children, shutting you out and not telling you where they're going and dangerous, risky things, I developed something called the robot, and the robot is imagining you're a robot. So I take the parents through this sort of visual experience where they pick their favorite robot, and then we talk about what the affect of a robot is, and we all know it's sort of flat affect, and then we practice that. Please don't speak to me that way. That's disrespectful. Mm-hmm. And I remind them of the look that their parents probably gave them when they were out of line. My dad never had to say anything. He just had to look at me, right?
Look. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And so we practice that as well. And I give them a bunch of tips around how to be a robot. One thing we learned in coaching school, if you all went to, is visuals. So Post-its all over the house of I am a calm mom who gets respect. I am a calm mom, or a picture of the favorite robot on the refrigerator. Kids don't need to know why you have robots hanging everywhere. You just like them. I just like robots this week. I'm just really collecting them, But that reminder, post it on the steering wheel of a robot. And just reminding yourself that if I don't fight with you, you can't fight with me. So we become Teflon, where the bows and arrows and the rocks and the things that they're flinging us figuratively are just sliding off us. And what happens is a kid will try, a kid who's really tough will probably push the first time you try to be a robot for about 45 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Which could seem like an eternity.
It could, but the key is getting over that one hump.
Yeah.
And without losing your cool and without them seeing your eye twitch. You know, you don't want to let them see that. So you have to really like be in the robot mindset. And eventually at the end of that session with your child or teen, what will happen is they'll just look at you because well, why are you talking? Why are you acting like that? And then you say, well, that's also rude. You know, so every pushback. And then they're like, I don't know what you want me to do. And you're like, I just want to talk with you calmly and figure out where you're going and when you're going to be home today. You know, it's like, that's all I want. So there's no go to your room. There's no timeout. There's no, if I had talked to my parents that way, I would have been hit upside the head. There's no lecturing. There's no questioning. There's just it's kind of like if you were the director of a play or a movie, you would just have them redo the scene over and over again. And so as that director, would you like to try that again? Would you like to ask me in a way that I can hear you? You know, some of us have done this a little bit with our little kids. I remember I used to say to my daughter, can you please use your words, right? Because she would scream and yell and cry when she wanted something. But I realized later that was probably not effective, and I know it wasn't, because she didn't have the words to express the feelings that she was having.
She needed to.
So I needed to say to her, you're really upset, you're really frustrated that I won't give you a candy right now. Please don't cry like that. That's not going to happen. You know, you're not going to get it that way, or, you know, just in a very monotone voice so that there's no fighting and no power and no given, you know, that this pushback that happens, which often leads to a big explosion for parents and their children. So we just don't want to play in that sandbox.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. What great! Oh my gosh!
Really, really, really excellent tips. And I was a teacher for a long time for high schoolers, and I know when I started, I was scared. I thought, oh, what if a kid says, "I hate your class, I'm walking out," or I don't know, you know, whatever. I was really afraid, and it was just interesting to work with them as a group. And now I have boys who are teenagers, but at the time, my kids were little, and I really found over the years of teaching them, they want you to be in control. They want you to lead in the right direction. They don't want to be with their parents or anybody else. They're still little babies in so many ways, even though they're kind of in a big body and they feel like they're kind of grown up. But I found they, you know,
that's true.
Little baby in a big body. Yeah.
Sometimes bigger than you.
Yeah, sometimes bigger than you. But they want it and they welcome it. So I can only imagine that this sounds amazing what you're doing and teaching parents to kind of bring that back around, and kids must be delirious.
The other thing that just reminded me when you said that, it was like, oh, what would I have said if I was a teacher and a kid said that? I don't like your class? Yeah. I would be like, you know, I don't really want to be here either. You know, like I do that, like a lot of humor also with I teach the parents to make it funny. So when the kids are like, "Rah," it's like, oh my gosh, like that's just a riot. You know?
Yeah.
Because if you can lighten it, you know, and just imagining if you had said to that student, you know, well, I don't want to be here either. Maybe, do you have any suggestions about how we can make this class more fun? You know, it's not about control. It's about connection.
Hearing them being heard.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. Everybody's trying to be heard.
And then empathize and validate. I get it. Like, I wouldn't want to, when I was 15, I didn't want to sit in math either, you know? I mean,
Right.
What I was hearing when you were explaining or suggesting those tips of how to really rein it back in, and that first time it's going to be about 45 minutes of like.
Could be, yeah.
Right. It reminded me of parents have done this a couple of other times in the child's life, right? We're just going to keep on going until those diapers are off and you can wear the big boy pants.
Yeah.
Keep coming up against stuff that it'd be easier, like, oh, just get the diaper on, let's go. But no, so you as a parent have already exercised that sort of discipline where you'd like to go in and save some time for yourself and also just, you know, rush your kid through a situation. And then I've never done it myself, but that soothing the baby, you know, when the baby can't sleep, the baby cries and you just have to say, we just have to wait this through and kind of go through a process to kind of remove yourself and not go in and so the child can self-soothe. Mm-hmm. So it's reminiscent that a parent, when they've got a teenager in your office or on your phone calls,
will have already had experience where they've already done that before. I would think that would be helpful to hear that. Like,
yeah, I think so, but I think there's this other psychological thing that happens. Once they can talk, we expect them to behave like us.
Yes.
And go clean up your room. Like, that should be just a simple request, right? But it's not. I don't know any parent that ever had a good time with that one. So it's, right? Because when a child walks into the room, it's this, if it's bad, messy, really messy, they don't know where to start. They don't know how to do it. So they just sit on the floor and start playing. And then the parent comes in and the parent's angry. I told you to clean up your room. Now you can't go play with your friends. Now you're grounded for a week. And all these terrible, like, control mechanisms, instead of going, hey, do you need some help figuring out where to start? Like, here's 4 bags. This one says put away. This one says throw away. This one says give away. And this one says I don't know. Let's just throw stuff in bags.
Yeah, start somewhere.
Boom, boom, boom. You can do that in 15 minutes and have a room cleaned up, and and then at least everything is in a bag. Maybe you don't get it where it goes yet, but it's not all over the floor and you can vacuum.
Right?
So,
just out of curiosity, when a parent starts talking to you about consequences, what kind of reply do you have? I mean, how do you talk to a parent about consequences?
Well, when I teach this, I set them up to say, would you like to never have to send them to timeout? And they're like, absolutely. I hate doing timeout because then I have to watch it and time it, and they don't stay there anyway. And then I'm punishing them for not staying in the timeout, which is kind of funny, right? And I said, well, because you won't need this anymore. Would you like to learn some systems to motivate your child to do their homework, to pick up their room, to get dressed in time, to get into the shower, to brush their teeth? So it's all about, what they want, what's important to them. Okay, let's prioritize. Like, what's first? What's most important? What's second? What would you like to work on next? And we'll just check them off week by week. I don't put all the systems in the same week. So again, it's usually starting with respect, because they're not going to listen to you and get motivated if you don't have the respect. So that's number one. Probably takes, a couple of weeks to get that one down, and they start to feel confident that they can be a robot. And then start to put the systems in place over time, and then any special circumstances. And sometimes what I end up with sometimes is mom and dad on a Zoom call like this with me talking about their relationship. So we kind of we take care of all that, and then we go for the core.
Yeah. That's why I've actually started calling myself a family coach now, not just a parenting coach.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Terrific. Well, so Susan, you've written some books, and I know that you've got a lot of projects coming up. Can you just give a quick? We'll finish up with that at this point.
Okay. A number of books. I started out, my first book was called Take Back Your Parenting Power System. And it's a manual, the manual that we didn't get, that you referred to when the kids were born. And this is how you feed them. This is how you put them to bed and make them stay in their beds. This is how you get them to do their homework. This is what happens if you end up getting divorced. This is what happens if you get married again. This is what happens if someone dies in your family. Just a one-pager on how to organize these types of things that come up in our daily lives. And then over the years, I've written a couple of other books and done some information products such as CDs and relaxation, and that's all on my website. People can look at that.
Can you tell us?
Parentingpowers.com, www.parentingpowers.com.
Right.
And there's also a couple of books that I've written that are sort of semi for professionals, teachers, but also parents have been buying them because they have a lot of great tips, and those are the tips books. And so there's all kinds of things for families with ADHD children. There's all kinds of things for parents who have children on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum in there, and some other really juicy, great tips. And there's 2 of them. One is the over 60 and one is the over 55. And those are published by Premier Publishing out in Wisconsin. So those are on Amazon, and the link to get them is on my site as well on Parenting Powers.
Terrific.
And you can just search for me, Susan Epstein, LCSW, and the books will pop up on Amazon for that. The cool thing for anybody who lives in New England and wants to see me in person is on April 18th at Westbrook, Connecticut, at the Water's Edge Resort and Spa, ladies and gentlemen. You can come down in the morning, get a massage, have lunch, and then come to get kids to listen the first time, every time. Parenting seminar with me. We're going to have a vendor fair with all kinds of things for parents and raffles, and I will be announcing a new program that I'm working on at that event, and the tickets can be bought at parentingpowers.com. I'm sorry, parentingpowers.eventbrite.com.
Right.
So parentingpowers.eventbrite.com for Get Kids to Listen the first time, every time. And the tickets just went on sale yesterday. And I'm hoping that some of you up and down the shoreline will, and the Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, who can get there in an hour or two, will come and spend the afternoon with me.
I'm trying to get, I have it in my calendar, so hopefully I'll be.
I know you do. Yeah. Be great.
Great. Good. Well, Susan, thank you so much for spending some time with us. This was a great interview, and we learned a lot of great material. So.
Yes, very inspiring. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a blast seeing you ladies. Being with you today.
All right. So find Susan at parentingpowers.com, and thank you, everybody, for being here with us today at Mighty Married Moms.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Mighty Married Moms. Tune in twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays to meet fascinating and inspiring guests who will help you create the life you've always wanted.
You can find these episodes and special gifts just for you at mightymarriedmoms.com, as well as a link to our Facebook community,
where we continue the conversation around the kitchen table. Please also help share the love by leaving a review on iTunes. We'll see you next time.